Hello and welcome back to FTB Interactions. Some of you may have caught the stream yesterday for episode 19, thank you for tuning in if you did. If not, we're going to go through a quick recap of what's changed here. The first thing we did was we moved all of our storage over here. For now we're just still using these modular storages. And I did hook up the logistics pipes just so that we can have access through the remote orderer. So we can still request our items remotely. However, we do now have Applied Energistics up and running, so we are using storage buses here to access all of our items through the terminal. Also, before the stream started, I did build a little bit more, which is what you can see here. We didn't end up building very much on stream, but we did progress quite a lot through the tech, which I'll show you. So for now, we just have a basic, very basic ME system. No P2P channels just yet, but we have some of the dense cable that we found in the dungeon that runs underground here, and that feeds through a couple of different systems that use our Applied Energistics at the moment. I also mentioned last time that we would be trying out Applied Energistics fluid storage and also transfer, so we have set up some fluid drives here. At the moment we're only using fluid drives, and I've partitioned a few of them. Anyways, through this room here is our new, well, technically old, but it's going to be the new processing room for all of our GregTech machines. The first new machine I set up, which is not going to stay here, but I did build a multi-smelter here for, well, smelting everything. And we have a quick crafter here to auto-craft the Aegon tiles that we're using everywhere. The next thing we done on stream was to set up this tree farm. And this I took from here, so actually we'll clean this up today. This was the old tree farm for Spectre wood, and we're going to take this down. But yeah, this new tree farm is to supplement our charcoal byproduct production. Before we were getting charcoal byproducts exclusively from this farm, in the form of sludge, which we were distilling into charcoal byproducts and then running through the distillation tower. Right now we have the output from this farm feeds into these barrels, and the logs go through this ender chest, and the ender chest is connected right here to the new pyrolysis oven. So this oven, we combine nitrogen and logs, and this gives us charcoal and charcoal byproducts, the fluid. The charcoal byproducts output goes upstairs to the distillation tower, and that just helps here with our ethanol production, which was a bit slow, and still is a bit slow to be honest, but I think it's fine right now. Something else we noticed on stream was that our nitro diesel had actually run out. Please tell me I have a filter on this. I don't. You know what? We might have actually voided all of our fuel. Very late last night I put this down for nitro infused diesel. This is what? Extract on brown? Extract brown? Oh my gosh, this is a fail. The trash can was insert brown. So we might have actually voided all of that diesel. I can't believe that happened. Okay, I'm gonna sit. First thing I'm gonna do is put a filter on that trash can. I guess you learn lessons the hard way. And last night when I was tinkering with some things, I set up this ender tank and connected it up there to fuel the generators we have up there. And in my infinite wisdom, I had it connected to the same conduit network as this trash can. And so yeah, all of the fluid was getting trashed. So with our diesel production fixed, then we moved on to rebuilding some of the MV setups. So the plan is to remove all of this spaghetti here, that like I mentioned. Also, all of these LV machines are going to go. We're going to rip all of these out. And the first thing that we started with was clay electrolysis. So we electrolyze clay for a bunch of byproducts. This is what the start of the chain is. So we moved it all to HV tier. I made a couple of diesel generators here and stuck some batteries in this one. I think we'll have to add some more diesel generators, but I'm waiting on those ones running out of diesel before I move them over to this line. But yeah, right here we have clay being electrolyzed, giving us these outputs. The aluminium goes into our blast furnace, output to this barrel. This chain here is for brine, so we have brine coming from our thermal evaporation plant over there. And then the salt water gets turned into chlorine, and then we're making liquid lithium into tiny piles of lithium. The next setup is for mineral, so we have a compressor here for the mineral enriched eggs, which then gets centrifuged to give us these item byproducts, and it also gives us mineral resin and methane, I believe. Yep. And those are being output into a fluid interface for fluid storage. These machines on the end here are actually for Teflon, so I didn't actually intend to make this. However, I noticed that P2P channels require polytetrafluoroethylene, if I can find the recipe here. Yeah, so for P2P, we need polytetrafluoroethylene sheets. So rather than doing more temporary setups, I want to make sure everything's done right this time. So we decided at the end of the stream it would be a good idea to set this up and give us our polytetrafluoroethylene sheets. So the way this works is we made the fluorine chicken, and actually this is our bottleneck right now. It looks like power is also a bottleneck, but this fluorine chicken took a little bit to grind up, but it's not too bad actually. Anyway, this gives us fluorine and also tiny piles of calcium, which we're just going to store and void. The fluorine goes into here where it gets mixed with hydrogen, coming from this chemical reactor, which has a gassy chicken on the back. Those two mix together to give us hydrofluoric acid, which goes into this chemical reactor. This mixes hydrofluoric with chloroform, which comes from here, and the chloroform is chlorine methane, which is being supplied by this fluid interface. Right now, as you can see, there is bottlenecks in place somewhere. We'll have to address those. Yeah, the way these fluids are being passed along is via pumps with filters, with GregTech filters. And this also gives us diluted hydrochloric acid, which we are just distilling and then sending back into our system on auto output to the right hand side. Then the chloroform and hydrochloric combine to make tetrafluoroethylene, which goes Op1. And this combines with oxygen, which we're getting here from a gassy chicken, into polytetrafluoroethylene, which goes to the right hand side to make our sheets. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way this is set up actually. I'm quite liking the fluid system storage from Applied Energistics, because it means that we don't have to have fluid tanks in the middle of all these machines, and we can just pass the fluids up between them with filters. And then on the end, wherever there's byproducts, we just stick a fluid interface and just jam it all into that. So it does make for some more clean setups like this, which I do quite like. Also, we do have to make some more storage buses for all of these barrels, of course, just to have them access to our ME system. But I'm going to do that as we need it. And there is space for it at the back here, so there's no worries about that. We can just put a storage bus on each one of these. So this is more or less the way I plan to do things moving forward. I'm not quite sure about all of this agon here, so we might end up changing up the design aspect of it. But in terms of functionality, it's almost all there, and at least we don't have to rebuild this anymore. So I think the plan moving forward is just to tear all of this down, get all of this cleaned up, and then move and optimize all of these setups for HV at least. So I'm just now realizing the scope of this, and I somehow keep doing this to myself where I have to end up rebuilding everything. A similar thing happened in Omnifactory, and yeah, here we are again. But this is where the fun began. I'm having a lot of fun now that we have Applied Energistics. So the first thing we're going to do today is clean up this tree farm. I'd say this is a big improvement. All that we need now is some facades to hide some of these conduits. And for that we'll need a painting machine and some capacitors to power it. And in this specific case we need grass block conduit facades, so for that we're going to want Silk Touch to pick up some grass. So I'll just put it on the jackhammer here. I'm going to give it a Spectre coil for energy, and we'll make our grass facades. And we can even hide these conduits with some brick facades. So yeah, that's all the cables in place, all the facades. I even managed to get this area tidied up with some facades on there. And yeah, I think we can call this area pretty much done. I'm not sure what we're going to do about that face there. I might terraform that out. I think we'll wait till we get flight before cleaning that up. And the next little project I'd like to do today is implement our ability to make P2P tunnels. So we're going to set up our P2P infrastructure. I will briefly explain how P2P works, but first of all I do want to create a little basement down here, just to make it easier to run cable everywhere. I think that might take me a few hours, to be honest with you, so I'm just going to put on some music and yeah, get to that. Hopefully I'll be back when it's finished. Alright, that actually didn't take me very long at all. I just ended up putting cobblestone everywhere, flattened it out, and this is going to make it a lot easier to run cables. I wasn't really sure what to do with this area here since it's still unfinished building wise, so it's just going to stay like this at the moment. While I was doing that, I also did run this assembler to make our P2P tunnels. I made 48, that might be a bit overkill, but yeah, we're now able to do this since we have the polytetrafluoroethylene. And these are not cheap. These take dense smart cables, which is redstone glowstone with the dense covered cable. And the covered cable takes the Teflon liquid along with the glass cable. So these things are definitely not cheap. But anyways, let's get to setting up our P2P networks. Okay, so I got all the P2P tunnels in place, and to be honest with you, this actually did take me a couple of tries to rebuild. As it is quite easy to mess up if you forget quartz fiber and so on. So since ME controllers are kind of hard to craft, and we only have this 8 right now, I've used 7 for the subnet, which all have the P2Ps on there, and they are all connected on this dense cable into this controller, which acts as a subnet. When you're hooking these up, you have to be careful that you don't connect more than 8 channels to the regular smart cable. However, you do have to power the P2Ps, so that's what this piece of quartz fiber here is for. If you connect quartz fiber, it does not transfer channels, only power. And then all the channels converge into this dense smart cable here, and that goes into our subnet. And in the middle there we have the energy acceptor to accept power, obviously. So now we have to actually hook these guys up. So the first ones we want obviously is our storage. We want to hook that back up. So I think we'll just use the closest one. I'm going to do dense cable out of here. And then I'm just going to use the regular glass cable until we have more connections that go this way. But since the glass cable right here is cheaper, I'm just going to use this. Actually, I guess I'm kind of forgetting one important thing, and that is the P2P. Oops, it has to go on this side. So if we run dense cable into there, actually that's backwards still, isn't it? That's what we want. This is, yeah. So to connect the P2Ps, we have to shift right click the mainnet first, and then right click the subnet. And as you can see in the tooltip, this is the output side. So now all of our storage should be online. Yep, we can see all of our items. I think there is actually 2 here. So what I might do is, well, no, we can just do a different P2P. So we'll just copy the same setup right here. Place another P2P. Be careful not to connect these 2. And then we can just pick any other P2P tunnel. So we'll pick this one and connect this here. So now all of our items should be online. If we check the storage buses, all of these should say device online. Nice. So next up, we obviously want a line that goes this way to our main machine room. In fact, we might end up having 2 lines that go that way. So to accommodate for that, I think I'm going to move this dense cable here over 1 block so that we can have another one running right here. So one will effectively serve the right side of the room and one will serve the left hand side. And we're just going to connect that up to this face of the controller right here. And instead of putting the P2P channel on like right here, we're going to connect it a little bit further down the line. So let's move this cable out of the road. Actually, we can remove all of this just so that we don't get confused. And then right, this glass cable here is where the new block of machines is for the Teflon setup. Up there, where the blast furnace is. So obviously we need some channels there, and so we're going to create a little offshoot here to put our P2P. I do need some more smart cable though. So we want smart cable, P2P, and then we can connect all of this up. There we go, device online. So now all of these devices should be online. Let's double check. Yep, this looks to be sending and receiving fluid. And yeah, as you can see, this way we are only using the 1 channel, as this P2P network effectively condenses all of the channels on here. Like if I replace this with a smart cable so we can see the channel usage, there is actually 3 channels here, but after it hits the P2P it only goes down to 1. And then obviously we have 32 channels on the dense cable. So this sort of setup effectively eliminates the channels in AE2, although we obviously still have to work around it using this setup. It's taken me a little bit to remember how to do this after playing Omnifactory without channels, but it's not too difficult once you get your head around it. But hopefully you can see how this is going to be expanded as we add more and more channels and more things to our network. And with this, I think we can move on. So the next thing I'd like to clean up today is our polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride setups, which is from that chemical reactor right there to the end there with the brewery. So for that we're going to need a handful of machines. So we're going to need 2 fluid solidifiers, 1 chemical reactor, 1 distillery, and 1 brewery. So I'm thinking that we set up the polyethylene on this side of the room, similar to this setup. And for that we have to take this thing down. So I want to make sure that it's equal distances. So right here we have 9 blocks. And the first machine is going to be a brewery. This is going to make our biomass. So we have to supply this thing water. And I think I'll just actually take the aqueous accumulator that's from underneath this one. Just reuse it since we won't be using this setup anymore. So we're going to fluid conduit the water into this brewery on blue channel, and we'll have to give it water, of course. There we go. So this thing also needs plant balls, so we're going to supply that through the ME system, but I'm going to hold off on that just for the moment. But that's going to go into a distillery, and that's going to be auto output. I need to grab the wrench. So we're going to wrench this for auto output. That's going to put our biomass in here. So the biomass is going to go on circuit 0. And then this is going to go into a chemical reactor. So this is going to be auto output also. And the chemical reactor needs plastic enriched eggs. So we're going to hook up our roost behind here. In fact, no, we'll do it on top, because there's going to be power cables that need to go here. The roost can go right here actually. And then we can item conduit into the top and facade that. And good job I double checked, because it turns out I'm building this 1 block off, so it all needs to be moved back 1 block. Give me a second. The next step is going to be a fluid solidifier. So I'm going to put 1 here for polyethylene and 1 here for polyvinyl chloride. And since we need both the fluid polyethylene as well as the sheets for polyethylene, we in fact, do we need the ingots as well? I can't remember if we use polyethylene ingots. I guess we use it for polymer clay. Okay. I think what we're going to do is when we set up our polymer clay setup, I'm going to just pipe the polyethylene fluid, and we'll fluid solidify it on site for ingots. And right here we'll just do the sheets. So what I'm going to do is put a fluid interface right here, and then we're going to fluid conduit into the fluid interface with a priority on the fluid solidifier. So we want this on priority 1. So any polyethylene coming out of this chemical reactor will first of all go into the fluid solidifier, and then any excess will go into our system as polyethylene fluids. However, we do also want to control how many sheets we produce. So for that we're going to use a machine controller. And the machine controller allows you to use redstone to control whether the GregTech blocks are actually on or off. We're going to put it on this side I think, and we'll also need a level emitter. There's a couple of different ways you can do this to control stock amounts and things like that, but I find this way is the easiest way. So we'll put a level emitter straight on the machine controller, and we'll have to hook that up with some glass conduit or glass cable. And then on this level emitter we're going to say polyethylene sheets are below, we'll do 2 stacks for now, so 128. We might end up adjusting this number. And then we're going to do emit when levels are above. So when we have over 2 stacks, this is going to send a redstone signal to the fluid solidifier, and that will turn it off, and we won't produce excess sheets. So now I think what we want to do is hook up some power to get this thing running, and also hook up a P2P network over here. So I think we'll run it just opposite to this one. And we did say we were going to run a separate dense smart cable, but since they are so expensive at the moment, I'm just going to run it off this one. It's easy enough to just take out this cable and then replace it with the dense one. So we're going to put our other P2P right here, and then we'll run our ME connection over here. I'll have to go and link this. So we shift right click the mainnet, right click our P2P. This should link it any second now. Device online, awesome. So now we can just hook up both of these devices and these should be connected once it establishes a channel. Yeah, you can see the network blinking out there. That's just because we don't have enough power storage. In fact, I will have to add a couple of energy cells. So next we want GregTech power here. And I think what we'll do is just take these two generators here, these two diesel generators. And I will craft a battery buffer for this also. So that's going to sit right there where that cable is. And then it's going to power all three of these machines here. And I suppose we'll move this glass cable just so that we can run our power cable in this space here. Like that, so now all of these should get power once we give some diesel to these generators. And I wonder, do I have another ender tank? That would be really ideal. We cannot quite craft them yet, but we're getting them from the moon dungeons. What we'll probably end up doing in the future is actually moving this diesel via the ME system. Once we have our diesel production in a place where we want to leave it. But for now we'll just use these ender tanks. So now these generators are getting power, and this should power all of our machines. So now, to get this going, we need to input plant balls in this brewery. So we're going to have to supply plant balls. Luckily, we are actually producing them here via this mineral setup. So we can put our storage bus straight on here. This should become online, yep. And then we're going to high priority this. Setting priorities to high on storage buses will set it to input this first and output any other sources of plant balls first. Yeah, I hope that made sense. So now what we can do is put another regular interface on this brewery, and we can ask the interface to supply plant balls here. We're going to actually hide it from the interface terminal also. And since our AE system was blinking and switching on and off all the machines, I added a couple of energy cells here, which should buffer some energy and stop the outages from happening. So now, as you can see in this fluid interface, we have polyethylene backing up. So we are going to want to partition one of our drives to hold polyethylene. Where did I put this cell workbench? So when we come over to the cell workbench, we put in our fluid cell, filter for polyethylene, and we will also filter this for vinyl chloride. And we should see that polyethylene has now disappeared. It should be in our system by now. No? Maybe it just takes its time. Oh, wait a sec. It would help if I plugged this in. This is Omnifactory all over again. Okay, plug it in and now it should disappear. So now for the polyvinyl chloride, we want another chemical reactor. We're going to set that right there. And this has to be supplied both chlorine and polyethylene, the fluid. So to do that, we're going to come to our fluid interface and we're going to ask for both polyethylene. So you put it in this top slot here. And also chlorine. Okay, so that's getting chlorine, polyethylene. We'll want a fluid filter. And we're going to filter the insert here for chlorine and polyethylene. We'll also have to plug this in. And this should make us polyvinyl chloride. So do we need this as a fluid? I don't think so. So all of this can just go straight into the fluid solidifier. And set this to auto output. And then we just need 2 molds for our solidifiers. And we're going to do the same thing with the level emitter on this side. So we're going to level emit for polyvinyl chloride sheets. And I think for this one we're just going to do 64. So all that's left to do now is to output this product back into our system. So we're just going to use interfaces for that. It'd be nice to have one each, but it saves on channels and also resources. So we're just going to use the one. This one we can auto output. And you can see that disappeared into the interface. And this one here we'll just use IM conduit for. So actually let's just give this a quick test to make sure that the level emitters work. So right now we have this set to 128 and we have 72 in our system. Let's maybe set this down to 64. The level emitter should turn off and you can see in the tooltip the working is disabled. So that's going to stop any more polyethylene from converting to sheets, and the rest will be put into our system as liquid. And with that, I think we can call this setup good. All we have to do now is give it a nice frame, put on all of our facades. And the bottleneck in this is this brewery actually to produce biomass. We might have to add some more of those. We can easily stack them on top of each other, but I don't suspect that will be an issue since this is a fully passive system. And this will just produce us polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride basically all the time that we're logged in. So with that, I think we can actually call this setup good. I'm gonna just take the existing fluids that we have out of our MV setup, just to not waste them, because I believe there is quite a lot of polyethylene in here. So we're gonna transfer all of this. Oh yeah, there's just like full buffers, full tank, or full drum there. This is full of polyvinyl chloride, and so is this actually. So we'll definitely take the fluids out of there and not void them. And also one other nice thing is, since we set up that orbital miner, I haven't actually been mining. Or I've done very little mining, to be honest, and we have a lot of resources in here, as you can see. I've been making use of the HV macerator since it gives chance outputs. And if you'll remember, we set up our orbital miner here. This thing hasn't actually been running that long. It's been running maybe like 10 minutes real time, and then I've switched it off. And we already have all of this stuff. So like we have hundreds of dense ores that I've just been throwing in that macerator. So that's been really nice for things like copper. And then I just throw them in the multi-smelter and they're done, basically. I'm going to turn some of this into red alloy though. Yeah, we have some stainless there. Tons of stainless here. I'm still batch crafting, but hopefully we can get into auto crafting maybe next episode. We'll have to see. If not next, it'll be the one after that. I did also add spectre trees back to our tree farm over here, and I also cleaned up the one that was down there from earlier on. So this gives us our ectoplasm back, and we have still the 2 mineral, and that's all just connected to the barrels that are here. It looks like I forgot a facade there. Let's fix that. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you again for the support on this channel, it's really appreciated. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more FTB interactions.